And Byron, as I mentioned, the way they're going to approach this is our opportunity race. And I feel like that's probably how all these teams are going to look at it. We need to capitalize on this race. It's this race or nothing. This is the nitty gritty round. This is the survive and advance round. It is go or go home.
Hello and welcome to the RACER Debrief. I'm Lawrence Foster, and today we are very pleased to have our NASCAR expert, Kelly Crandall, on the RACER Debrief with us. And really good timing because, Kelly, we are into the round of 8 on the NASCAR Cup Series Playoffs. The point where I feel it gets to the real sort of nitty-gritty of the season. So, Kelly, just set the stage for us on the round of 8 and what we have in store over these next few weeks.
I like how you said that. This is the nitty gritty, right? It's always been real, but it feels like when you get to the round of 8, it really is real. This is it. This is advance or go home. There is no tomorrow. And it's funny to phrase it like that because I feel like that is going to be the theme of this round of 8. Particularly starting at Las Vegas this weekend. And William Byron had mentioned a little bit of the same way of how his team is approaching this round. Because remember, we have Talladega looming next weekend, right? Smack in the middle of this round. And really, even with Martinsville, that's going to cap it off. Both of those races can get pretty wild. And we have seen, particularly at Martinsville, for it being a short track, we have seen that elimination race come down to the last minute, right? Christopher Bell and Byron last year, Harvick trying to wreck Kyle Busch to get in, Logano and Truex going at it. So that race can be crazy.
Hi, quick timeout to tell you about something special. You are going to want to visit racer.com/bundle. RACER just dropped a bundle for real motorsports fans. It includes RACER Plus, the new streaming home for everything from WRC and Dakar to DTM, Crandall, the Isle of Man TT, drifting, and even these podcasts, all in one place. You name it. This is a full spectrum of racing, from grassroots to global, off-road to electric, 2 wheels or 4, and it's a spectacular deal. Head to racer.com/bundle to sign up now. All right. Back to the show.
So to swing it back to Las Vegas, as we look at this round, we start with a race that is pretty traditional, mile and a half, go out, show me what you got, bring your fastest race car. And Byron, as I mentioned, the way they're going to approach this is our opportunity race. And I feel like that's probably how all these teams are going to look at it. We need to capitalize on this race. It's this race or nothing. If you can't win this race, get as many points as you can to give yourself a shot at Talladega and Martinsville, because we don't know what's going to happen there. So this is the nitty gritty round. This is the survive and advance round. It is go or go home. And we come down to 8 drivers that I feel like have been here all season long. These are the drivers we have talked about for 26 regular season races and now through 6 playoff races. They're the ones who have won the races. They're the ones who have been up there in the point standings. And as a whole, as I wrote this week for my column on the website, of course it was going to come down to this. It's the big 3. It's the new version of the big 3 in the Cup Series with Joe Gibbs, Roger Penske, and Rick Hendricks. So we have...
And Kelly, even that top 8 in the drives as well, 7 of the 8 are the same who were in the round of 8 last year.
Yes.
I think the only switch out is we don't have a Tyler Reddick. We have a Chase Briscoe instead.
Briscoe, yeah. So that's where I was going to go next, is because as I mentioned about how, well, it's always going to come down to this. There's so many repeat factors here. You have...
Right.
You have Hamlin and Logano, who lead all drivers with 10 appearances in the round of 8 now. Chase Elliott has been here 8 times. Ryan Blaney has been here 7 times. Kyle Larson has been here 5 times. And then you have Byron and Bell, who have been here 4 times. Chase Briscoe's kind of like the kid who doesn't know what he doesn't know. He's only in the round of 8 for the second time, and he's never been to the championship for. So it's kind of like 7-on-1 versus of experience and what to expect and having done this before. But yes, all of these drivers, I mean, they have been here, done that. And particularly from what we saw in 2024, it's the same cast of characters.
This is RACER, your all-access pass to the best motorsports, performance, and car culture. Get RACER Plus for live races, extended highlights, breaking news, and fan-favorite build and enthusiast shows, all in one place. From Formula Drift to off-road mayhem.
A full-blown nail-biter.
Supercars to grassroots brawls, garages to rare collectors. Stream it all, anytime, anywhere. This is about machines and the people who move the culture forward. And when the screen fades, the story continues in RACER Magazine, a collectible trusted by champions, creators, and connoisseurs. Every page, a deeper dive into the soul of speed and performance. RACER Plus and RACER Magazine, the ultimate bundle. Built for the obsessed, powered by passion.
And I guess as well, two recurring scenarios. Obviously, Denny Hamlin is the guy who, how on earth has he not been a NASCAR Cup Series champion? But he's looking, Kelly, I would say that he is actually looking pretty strong at the moment, pretty well placed. He's playing the game as it should be played during the playoffs. Is this the year maybe when Denny finally breaks that championship duck?
I don't know. And I say that because we have seen this movie time and time again. Because right, I mean, Denny has come so close, whether it's been former playoff formats, whether it's been this format with the eliminations, whether he's gotten to Phoenix and been within a caution away of winning a championship. So he is that driver that just for some reason the door has not opened for him yet. But I will say, to your point, you bring up an interesting point of how good this 11 team looks. I have felt like that, particularly through the first 26 races, through the regular season, when they started reeling off wins, and even from a week-to-week basis, it didn't feel like this team, aside from road courses, because Denny's just not a road guy. And he'll tell you that, right? Like when you ask him where does he have every opportunity, he'll say everywhere but insert road course here. So I really felt like through the first 26 races, this team has looked as good as it has ever looked. They really have no weaknesses. And even when they weren't winning races, he was running up front. They were top 10, if not top 5 teams. He was leading laps. He was getting stage points. And to me, that shows the strength of your race team because, yes, the win column is great and you need the playoff points. But how much are you really in the picture? What are you doing when you're not winning races? And I like to look at that stuff. And I felt like through the first 26 races, if Denny wasn't winning, he was still in the conversation. That 11 car was still in the top 10 or top 5. So I agree with you. I think this is the best this team has ever looked. I feel like the playoffs are kind of playing out in typical Denny Hamlin fashion, where it doesn't matter who the crew chief is. It doesn't matter what races it is. They are managing the playoffs. He's doing what he needs to do. But now comes the hard part because, as I said, he's been here before. So I don't know if this will be the year because I'm still iffy on if he gets to Phoenix, how is he going to perform at Phoenix? That track has been his Achilles heel. It's been Joe Gibbs Racing's Achilles heel in the playoffs. They haven't won a championship since we've moved this format to Phoenix. So that's why I'm a little iffy, just because he hasn't yet done it. He's 0 for 20-something at this point. And I'm iffy just because I don't know where Gibbs is going to stack up when we get to Phoenix. But I will say, I think if there's ever going to be a year, Lawrence, wouldn't it be this year with everything going on?
Absolutely. And I say, Kelly, you mentioned, the fact that Gibbs isn't really sort of there or thereabouts normally at Phoenix. Going to the other end of the top 8 in terms of the drivers who are in the round of 8, Mr. Joey Logano, it's almost like a running joke in the racer office that, everything happens and then Joey Logano basically wins the wins the Cup Series. It seems awfully familiar that there's been a scramble. He's the last guy in on the round of 8 roster of drivers. There was mayhem sort of at the end of Charlotte. But at the same time, it's Joe Logano and it's Penske. And 8th place seems to be... I mean, he was a guy who won Las Vegas as well last year. You know, he could be the guy who, you know, Penske does a Penske.
Yep.
And basically he's locked into the championship 4. Just gives you thoughts on the Logano factor, maybe the Penske factor as well.
Yep.
Yeah. So
I do think it's an overall Penske factor because I've had this conversation with so many people, particularly this year after Joey, of course, won in 2024, right? I mean, it seems like Penske has become kind of the example of what is right or wrong with this championship format, depending on what side you fall on. So it seems like, yes, Team Penske is the perfect example because to me, what they do very well, whether you like it or not, they know how to manage a very long race season. This is a very, very long season, particularly the regular season, those 26 races. And we have now seen this, whether it's been Joey or Ryan Blaney, those first 26 races, they will scratch and claw. And there's going to be some races where they look like they're out to lunch and you don't even know if they're in the race. And then there's going to be another weekend where a Wilkesboro or a Nashville, whatever it may be, where they're going to go out and wax everybody.
Right.
And by the time you get to the postseason, they've got it all buttoned up, and now they're ready to pounce. So while Joey has won 2 of the last 3 championships, and everybody's always quick to point at him, I really think it's a Penske thing. I think they have figured out how to manage. If they start a season and they're not where they want to be, they know how to work through it, dig deep down, and we're going to be ready for the postseason. And that comes with experienced race car drivers and very experienced crew chiefs. And that's one of the things that I think kind of goes unlooked sometimes with Team Penske is just how deep and how good their roster of personnel is on their race teams. Joey in particular, again, he's become the example. He's become just everybody, let's look at this 22 team of what's right or wrong with this postseason. We saw this last year, Lawrence, right? I mean, he was eliminated at the checkered flag at Charlotte last year by 4 points. It was 4 points. So it's not like they were completely just not in the running. It was 4 points between he and Bowman. He gets in with the DQ. They go and win Vegas. And here we are again. And I got to tell you, there's a lot of folks in that garage and even race fans that would not be surprised. I don't think they'd be happy about it, but they would not be surprised to see the exact same thing happen this weekend. Yeah. This is what they do. They know their strengths. They know the racetracks that they're really good at. And what's really funny to me is history is repeating itself in a second way, courtesy of Chris Gabehart. And Chris Gabehart of Joe Gibbs Racing is one of my favorite people. The former crew chief for Denny Hamlin now is overseeing all of competition. And the reason I love Chris Gabehart is because not only can he give you a great 30,000-foot view of the sport, but he is not afraid to give you a quote and tell you and tell you how things are. And at this time last year, when Logano when he was eliminated but then got back in and went out and won Vegas, he told people, that's your champion. And a couple weeks ago, after New Hampshire, where the Penske cars waxed everybody in New Hampshire between Joey and Blaney, he on pit road once again told the media, here come the yellow cars, meaning the Menards and Pennzoil cars. It's playoff time, and here they come. So the garage is well aware that this is what happens with Penske. They will scratch and claw to get to this point, and then you better be prepared to race them in the playoffs because they're going to have their stuff buttoned up.
Because the other thing about Penske as well is there never seems to be any panic. You know, they get themselves into what anybody else would think was a bit of a pickle, a bit of a hole. But there is a Penske way, as you say, they claw and scramble. But there is a real sort of mindset that basically we can get out of anything and we can move on from anything.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think that goes back to what I said about the experience and the depth that they have on their bench. I mean, it's not just it's not just race car drivers, right? I mean, Ryan Blaney, for as young as he is, has been doing this for a very long time. And he's had a career that, in a sense, has been a little bit of up and down in terms of, the years that he spent driving the extra Penske car, making some starts in the Cup Series, to running in the Xfinity Series, getting a lot of experience there, to the years that he spent with the Wood brothers, not running full time, then having full time. So he's really kind of gone through it all. Plus, he's seen what his dad did in his career, right? Dave Blaney didn't have this totally wonderful, great, everything is roses career. And I'm sure Ryan saw that, as well as the rest of his family who are racers. So he knows, he's got a great head on his shoulders. He knows how to handle things. His crew chief, Jonathan Hassler, is, I feel like, a little bit overlooked maybe because he's not a big flashy guy. Even in interviews, whether they win the race or lose the race, he's kind of just cool, calm, collected, going to give you a quote. It's going to be a great quote, but he kind of just head down, does what he needs to do. But I feel like he's come such a long way since he took over that 12 team a couple years ago.
Right.
When Todd Gordon moved on. And Todd Gordon was there for the longest time at Team Penske. He is an absolutely incredible crew chief that was responsible for a lot of Joey Logano's success to this point until Paul Wolf came along, right? And Paul Wolf, another guy, experienced, doesn't get too high, doesn't get too low, but is really good at what he does. And then you have a guy like Joey who he'll tell you every year, our team has been here. We've done that. We're experienced. We are battle tested. Like, nothing phases that 22 team.
Yeah.
And even if you wanted to loop in, not to leave him out, Austin Cindric, I know he's been eliminated, but I feel like Austin Cindric and that 2 team are starting to really build their foundation the same way. Brian Wilson is an excellent crew chief, and he and Austin, I feel like, just get better and better. This postseason for them, I think when they dissect it and really dig into it, is going to be really disappointing for them because of not only, of course, the high hopes that they had, but I feel like if you look at their regular season and kind of, as I said, the foundation they were building and the way they were going into the playoffs, things just didn't, nothing really turned out for them in the first 2 rounds. So anyway, my overall point being is to your point of it, I think it comes with experience and depth. They have a lot of really good, solid people over there that just don't get too high, don't get too low. We know what our jobs are. We've been here, we've done that. We've got the wounds to prove it. And when the time comes, if we have to rise to the occasion, we know we can do it because we've done it before. And really, that's the hallmark in particular of that 22 team with Joey Logano. They're, as he says, we're old veterans at this point. That team's been together for so long. They really don't have a whole lot of turnover on that 22 team. And they just, every year, it's just another notch in the belt of, okay, we've done it, we can do it again.
Now, earlier on, Kelly, you mentioned William Byron. A couple of other Hendrick guys. Kyle Larson seems to be in the sort of position that Kyle Larson likes to be in at this point in the playoffs. And we also seem to have it where Chase Elliott is running pretty warm at the moment too.
Yeah.
I mean, we've not really sort of looked into Hendrick in depth so far, but it seems by not mentioning them first, Hendrick is kind of where they want to be at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah, I honestly, I think, Lawrence, that Hendrick Motorsports is the most fascinating team for me that's left in the round of 8, even though they had, in my opinion, I feel like they had a great regular season because Byron, of course, won the regular season championship. He led the points for 21 of the first 26 races. Larson had some time leading the points. Chase Elliott was top 3, top 5. But I feel like the reason that they're so fascinating when it comes to this postseason is because you can make an argument for why each one of them could win the championship, but I also think you can make an argument as to why each one won't win the championship.
Right. Yeah.
Make
that argument, Kelly.
Okay, so you look at Chase Elliott. This is the first time in 2 years Chase Elliott's even been in the round of 8, right? The last time he was in the round of 8 was, I want to say 20, let me look here, I got my notes, was 2022.
Yes, correct.
It's been a couple years since he's even made it this far. He hasn't been in the championship since, let me pull my notes, since 2022, that same year. So that team, though, is a team that I wouldn't be surprised on the race weekends when, as I used the expression earlier, when they're out to lunch and they're just hanging around the top 15, the top 10, but they're not really making noise. But I'm also not surprised the weekends like Kansas, where all of a sudden 5 people in front of them are Jimmy jacking around and they're the ones in the victory lane, right? So I just don't know what 9 team you're going to get on a week-to-week basis. So that would be my argument as to why I think he wouldn't win the championship, but it's also the exact same argument of why he could win the championship, because that team capitalizes when others take themselves out. And this round, as I said earlier, I feel like is going to be a big round for that. If you can capitalize on your competition having problems at Talladega and Martinsville, and if you have a good Las Vegas, you're in prime position to advance on points if you don't have a win. Kyle Larson, I think, is a little bit of the same way, just because it's crazy to think this team has not won since May.
That's right. Yeah.
They have not won since Kansas in May, which was right before the Indianapolis 500. And I know a lot of us over here since then have talked about, it's the Indy curse, or something happened since Indy, or how, we've all been phrasing it as
the Indy hangover. Yeah,
the Indy hangover. He's not.
Gosh.
The team's not been the same since then. But again, they have weekends where they come out and they're just so. They hang around the top 15, the top 10. And then they have weekends where Kansas or other races where, okay, they look like they're back in form. They look like the 5 team that we expect. But I would never, the reason I give them a lot of, I guess, points in the column for why they could win the championship is because I'm never going to go against Cliff Daniels. Yeah. That race team under Cliff Daniels, they don't get rattled. They aren't phased if a day is going bad. And Kyle's the same way. You just let Kyle drive the race car and let Cliff worry about everything else and put him in position, and I think they'll be fine. So if they can get to Phoenix, I think they will have as good a shot as anybody, because Phoenix has been a Hendrick-friendly racetrack, and I love Cliff Daniels in those championship situations. I think that he would be one of the top 3 that I would want on my box if I'm a driver. And then when you look at William Byron, maybe the most fascinating of all, because, and I said this to him a couple weeks ago in New Hampshire, and even again earlier this week, he has had such a quiet first 2 rounds. But that's not a bad thing, because they really have just kind of managed and done what they needed to do, because they came in with all those points, which is their reward for what they did the first 26 races. But this is the round where you can't be quiet anymore. You now have to step it up even more. You now have to go, as I said earlier, I need to see your fastest race car this weekend at Las Vegas. I need to see you getting stage points and contending for the race win. So on one hand, while they have had a very average, quiet 6 races after having an incredible regular season, I still think at any moment this team can I don't want to say turn it on, because I don't believe that there's any such thing as you just flip a switch. Mm-hmm. But I believe at any moment this team, and it could be the next 3 weeks, is going to go back to looking like the team that we saw the first 26. And if they get to Phoenix, then the conversation's going to be, oh, is he back to being the favorite? Because this is what we expected. So I think you can make an argument either way for all 3 of them. But I find it fascinating, as I said, of how good Hendrick is, that any one of these 3 teams on any given weekend is either going to be the dominant Hendrick Motorsports we're used to, or they're going to be second or third in the pecking order. And you're going to be
sure. Yeah.
And you're going to be wondering what's wrong.
Kelly, my sleeper pick. I think Christopher Bell is a guy who you've said about, that there is a potential asterisk against Joe Gibbs Racing at Phoenix, depending on who from JGR does get through to the Championship 4.
Yeah.
But Christopher Bell, in terms of just mindset, in terms of position, in terms of just being that sort of For me, a slightly under the radar guy seems to be. I'm not going to sort of like embarrass myself by saying this guy's going to be champion.
Yeah.
But I would not be surprised if this is Christopher Bell's year.
Yeah.
Just give me your take on the quiet man of the top 8.
So I'll let you off the hot seat and say that, listen, I think any one of these 8 drivers legitimately can be the champion at the end of this year. I mean,
I'll just name them all then.
I really do believe that we have the best 8 left of what we have seen from this season. Christopher Bell, though, I wonder if you feel that way in the sense because when we talk about regular season versus postseason, you look at how the 20 teams started the year where they looked, I mean, not just with the 3 straight wins, but through the first 3-4 months of the season, they looked so impressive. They looked, I don't want to say untouchable, but they looked like one of the best race teams. And it looked like it was going to be a year where how many wins is Christopher Bell going to have before we get to the postseason? But then they went and got quiet, and they really cooled off when the summer started, and then the frustration started, and I could see it, other people could see it, and suddenly the conversation every week when Bell was coming in the media center was, we're not living up to our potential. We still have more that we need to do. Then it got really frustrating, right? By the time that we got to Bristol a couple weeks ago, once we got into the postseason, where now he's talking and yelling over the radio because it's just building and building of, I should be winning races. I should be leading more laps. I should be doing what my teammates are doing. I think where this 20 team is right now, they are back to being where they need to be.
Right.
And if Bell gets to Phoenix, I don't think you're going to find anyone, and I don't even know who the Final Four is going to be, but I'm going to tell you right now, none of the other 3 drivers are going to be as determined as Christopher Bell is going to be that weekend, because he doesn't admit it. And I flat out asked him this and he told me no. He doesn't admit that what happened last year still bothers him or that he has a chip on his shoulder, but I don't believe him. I don't. And I think if he gets back to Phoenix with how close he has come before and the moments that he has had at Phoenix before, in addition to last year feeling like he was, in his words, robbed of going to Phoenix, if he is in the Final Four this year, that is going to be one race team and one driver that you are going to have the determination factor on their side. So I really like what they're doing right now. I think what happened a couple weeks ago from Gateway to Bristol was a nice reset for them because look, they went out and won Bristol, right? And yes, in one sense, winning cures everything. But I think for that team, it was a reset of, we can still go kick anybody's butt on any given weekend. We just have to keep our driver in it. And for Adam Stevens, he doesn't, I say this with a lot of crew chiefs, but again, it's all the crew chiefs that have been here, done that, have championships, and Adam is one of them. He doesn't get too high, doesn't get too low, but he is an excellent motivator. He is an excellent guy of keeping his driver in it. So I think they've got the performance back where they need to be. I think what happened a couple weeks ago was a nice, as I said, reset, kind of kick in the pants. Let's have a come to Jesus meeting. And I really feel like they've kind of been right there on the surface again. I mean, he could have won Kansas, right, a couple weeks ago. I feel like New Hampshire was an okay day for them. If they would have had track position, maybe he could have been, a top 5, top 3 car. But yeah, I feel much better about them now than where they were a couple months ago. So he's a good underdog, as you said, or however, your dark horse, Lawrence, because I personally think there's something to having a chip on your shoulder or being determined. And even though he's not admitting it, I do think he has that.
Well, I tell you what, that is great that you haven't talked me out of it, Kelly, thinking it could be a Christopher Bell year.
I like it. I really do. I really like where he's at right now.
Now, you've explained, Las Vegas in some ways is the most straightforward race. 1.5 miler, as you say, make sure you got a fast car. Las Vegas will be Las Vegas. For the guys who come out of Las Vegas having not optimized, not sort of delivered a good result. How does that change the mindset for the lottery that is Talladega?
That's a really good question, and I don't know if I have the answer, because I don't know if there is a straightforward answer of how you approach Talladega, because every one of these race teams and every one of these drivers have tried it so many different ways, and I don't know if there's a right way to do it. We've seen drivers that say, I want to go out and race, and I want to, if I can get stage points, let me try to get stage points. We've seen drivers say, I'm going to be conservative and hope everybody crashes, and I'm going to run in the back. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So I don't know if there's a right answer. I think what it does, I think what it does do after this weekend is make it a lot more straightforward for race teams of, okay, are we playing the math game or are we playing the win game? And how much pressure are they going to feel going to Talladega? How many knots are they going to have in their stomach next weekend? And also remember, yes, we've seen Talladega in the playoffs before. We typically, at least for the last couple of years, have not seen it this late in the playoffs.
No,
not in
somebody at NASCAR has got a sick sense of humor to put Talladega as the penultimate race before the championship 4.
Yeah. So I think what it'll do is it'll make it more straightforward that by the time we go to Talladega, okay, who's in panic mode, if anybody will admit to being in panic mode, versus who can play the math game and go for survival, and then who flat out is just saying, okay, we're here to race for wins. We're here, we know our best path is to just win.
There's also Martinsville, where, as you say, Martinsville isn't a straightforward thing. I mean, to me, Martinsville maybe plays into the hands. Remember when Denny Hamlin would basically have the guy delivering the grandfather clocks on speed dial to take the next one to the Hamlin household? I mean, if you're a driver who's basically got chops at a particular race, is that something to kind of think, I've always got this in my back pocket? Or are we at this point in the season where there is no such thing as a track specialist when you're all in there with just 3 chances to get through, basically?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think in the round of 8, and because of what we've seen play out at Martinsville, to use the phrase that William Byron told me earlier this week, you can't think you're going to have another day. You can't. Right. You can't live in this round thinking, okay, we've got another chance. Or, you have to take it race by race, in particular, as we were talking about after Kansas, of knowing where you stand for the next 2. And while Martinsville, on one hand, you want to say, yeah, it's a short track, it's straightforward, just, it's in the playoffs, it's anything but, because as I was doing earlier, you can list off all of the incidents that we've had at Martinsville the last couple. There is nothing straightforward about that race. And even guys who go in there thinking that they know where they stand on points, we always get into that third stage and suddenly it's tooth and nail. And we're double boxing it or triple boxing it, NBC Sports is, because it's going to come down to a couple positions. It's going to come down to Ross Chastain needing 5 spots on the last lap and doing what he did. It's going to be, as I said, Kevin Harvick wrecking Kyle Busch off the final corner to try to advance. It's 1 or 2 spots between Byron and Bell last year. It's Ryan Blaney needing to win his way in 2023, which is what he did, and he goes on to win the championship. Christopher Bell needing to win his way in a couple years ago. So there's nothing straightforward about that race, and I don't care how close drivers are when in the point standings when we go into that weekend, because as I said, we get to that third stage and suddenly the gloves are off and it's going to come down to the wire. So I don't think there's anything straightforward. I don't think you can count on, well, I'm good at Martinsville, or I have X number of wins at Martinsville, or this organization is good at Martinsville. That race just always throws something at this garage, and it's going to come down to those final 100 laps in that last eight.
Something interesting as well, NASCAR has come out and basically said, right, you guys, we don't want any manipulation. Brilliant. Love the fact that Mike Ford described it as we don't want shenanigans. Always a good day when somebody uses shenanigans. But, I mean, how, especially when you've got it where, for instance, 3 Hendrick cars, 2 Penske cars, 3 JGR cars, all with skin in the game, all want to win a championship. It seems that you kind of almost like talking to the wrong guys. Who would manipulate when so many of your cars are in? And also, Kelly, I want to be deliberately naive here. How would they manipulate, Kelly?
Right. It's not the teams in the round of 8 that you have to watch. It's everybody.
Right.
That's how you do it. To your question, I mean, it's not what they would do. It's what everybody else is going to do. And this is the exact lesson, and the reason we are having this conversation, and the reason Mike Ford is having this conversation, and the reason NASCAR has this conversation on SiriusXM or wherever it may be, is exactly because of what we saw last year at Martinsville. It's not what the drivers in the round of 8 did. It's what everybody else did. So, for those who are listening to this and not caught up, first off, Martinsville 2024. It was, yes, Byron was trying to hang on to his position because he's coming down to the wire with Christopher Bell, but you have other Chevy drivers who were essentially playing blocker to the 24 so he doesn't lose positions. Every position is a point. So if he loses position, he loses points to the Toyota of Christopher Bell. So that whole, as we call it in this industry, race manipulation, NASCAR is so on alert for that. Because it was such a bad look last year where the conversation leading into your championship was not about your championship. It was about race manipulation. It was about penalizing this team and suspending this spotter and having to talk to the garage and making sure everybody knows what the rule is. And then it's the garage coming into the media center at Phoenix. And again, instead of talking about championship, we're asking drivers, do you know where the line is of what you are and aren't allowed to do?
Right. Yeah.
Well, it's myself and other media members and race fans listening to all these scanners and tweeting every little thing of what these spotters are saying. So they are on high alert for anything.
So Kelly, this is basically a team. If I've got this right, a spotter, a crew chief can say whatever they want to their own driver, but as soon as spotters from different teams start talking permutations, that's when NASCAR is on full alert mode.
Right. So that's where we're at right now. It's everything that happened from Martinsville. That's why Mike Ford comes out and explains what he's explaining, because NASCAR has not told, according to NASCAR, they've never told the spotters or the teams, you can't talk about points. And we heard at the Roval, I was tweeting the radio communications, the TV was playing it. We heard radio communications of Ross Chastain, Joey Logano, and others. You can talk about points, but NASCAR wants you talking about points for your own car.
Right.
The minute that your driver is being informed of what's going on with other drivers or who's in and who's out, NASCAR doesn't want that, because then you're getting into a position to where 1 and 1 is 2. If that driver starts laying over or doesn't look like he's trying or randomly comes down pit road, now you're putting NASCAR in a position to where they have to officiate that, and they have to decide, were they truly racing to the best of their ability, or were we doing something that's, in Mike Ford's words, are we with the shenanigans because we're trying to help out a manufacturer car, or we're trying to help out a teammate, So yes, they are hyper aware of radio communications, of what these teams and spotters are saying, and they are hyper aware of who's doing what on the racetrack and how does it look. They reviewed everything from last weekend, right? Because Denny Hamlin was talking about, well, I wish I knew what was going on with the 1 and the 22, because, Denny's smart enough to say, hey, he's smart enough not to say, hey, I would have, let the 1 in because I don't want to race the 22. But we all know he was thinking it, right?
Yeah.
So NASCAR has to monitor that. Now, Cole Custer, a Ford driver, racing Joey Logano last weekend. Okay, did he race him? Or do we need to go review video and review radio? Was he told not to race him? That's the stuff that they are so hyper aware of. I mean, honestly, for the history buffs, this all started in 2013 with Spingate, right? Michael,
Spingate.
With
Remind us.
Yeah, with Michael Waltrip racing. I mean, it hasn't been as egregious since then, but there's always been these moments to where every so often NASCAR's like, oh man, we don't want to officiate this, but we're going to have to because it's so egregious. So last year Martinsville was so egregious, they had to officiate it. Naturally, now here we are a year later where, okay, we're just going to remind everybody. Don't put yourselves in a position to where what you're doing is going to rise to the level to where we have to get involved and make a call. Because it's a bad look for the sport, but you're also, as Mike Ford said, the race fans should be in the grandstands and at the racetrack knowing that, okay, I'm watching everybody actually make an effort and they're racing hard. So it's
I think that's the bottom line, basically.
Yeah,
isn't it?
it's such an unfortunate thing because, like I said, it doesn't happen to the level that it happened at Martinsville all the time, but it happens, and everybody is so eagle-eyed, like I said, and people have so much access nowadays to the scanners and the in-car cameras that it is a conversation, but it should be a conversation because we're talking about the integrity of the sport and the integrity of your playoffs, and you don't want people out there, quote unquote, not even trying because they're under team orders of help out a manufacturer teammate.
One thing, and by the way, this isn't linked to egregiousness and and shenanigans. Are you surprised by some of the drivers and team combos that are not in the top 8? I mean, we don't have a 2311 car. We don't have a Trackhouse car. We obviously had Shane van Gisbergen doing his thing, as you would entirely expect, but it didn't fall that way in terms of how the races were stacked. If we'd have had Kansas and the Roval in the first 3 races, I guess Shane van Gisbergen would have got into the round of 12. But are you surprised that, for instance, that we don't have a Reddick in the we don't have a Bubba in the final 8 or whatever? Who's the big surprise not in the round of 8 for you?
I'm not surprised that there's not a Trackhouse car because. Right. I mean, Shane had an uphill battle, and he knew that. We all knew that. I still thought if they could have a decent top 20 first round, that he had the points to fall back on, that he might have been able to get through to the second round because there was going to be drivers who took themselves out because that happens every year. But they did not have the Darlington that they needed to have, and that really set them behind the 8 ball. And he would have needed to win in the first round, and we knew that wasn't going to happen, unfortunately. But Trackhouse as a whole, the reason I say I'm not surprised is they've been behind this year. I mean, honestly, they've been behind for 2 years. And this is a conversation that not just myself, but a lot of us in the media that we have talked about with Ross Chastain and others of, how do you go from nearly winning a championship in 2022 to the entire organization being as far behind as they are this year. And they are, they're just behind. And if they had an answer for you, they would fix it and they wouldn't be behind. But as you know, in racing, Lawrence, it's not always one thing. It's a combination of everything. And for some reason over there at Trackhouse, they just have gotten behind on a lot of different things when it comes to this race car. So I'm not surprised in that regard, because when you're behind and you're searching for speed, in this sport, when you don't have time at the racetrack to work on your race cars, if you don't bring a really good fast race car on Saturday, you're not going to be in contention on Sunday. And that was the entire narrative of Ross Chastain's season, is he repeatedly talked about, we are not good on Saturdays, which means we're not going to be good on Sundays. And the weekends where they were really good on Saturdays, like the Coke 600, what'd they do? They went out and won.
Yep.
But overall, with how behind they have been this season, that's why I'm not surprised that they're not here. I was even surprised that he made it as far as he did, to be honest with you.
Really? Gosh.
I was surprised because, again, I thought that, okay, there's no way that they can straight up go straight out beat these guys in the playoffs to advance.
Sure.
So for it to come down to the last couple laps at the Roval, where he legitimately still had a shot, I thought was really impressive by that race team to have put themselves in that position. If I had to be surprised by anything, maybe it's the 23-11 factor, but it's Bubba Wallace versus Tyler Reddick. Because everything I just said about Ross Chastain, I think you can apply to Tyler Reddick's race team. They have just had too many races this year where they were hot or cold, and you didn't know which version of that race team was going to show up on a week-to-week basis. Mm-hmm. I remember all the way back in May of talking to Reddick about their mile-and-a-half programs and basically just where the speed of their race cars is. And even back in May, he was talking about how concerning it was because they just had so many questions from week to week of what their stuff was doing. Whereas Bubba and the 23 team had such a strong end to the regular season that I really felt like that momentum was going to carry them into the postseason. And it did. That first round, Bubba was not a story, but in a good way, because he earned so many points. He wasn't in danger of being eliminated in the first round. Now, I guess one of the negatives of this format is when it resets, what happened? He went from the penthouse to the outhouse in the second round because it reset and knocked him all the way back down.
Yeah.
And they never could climb out of it. So that's why I'm surprised, because with the first round that they had, I really felt like, okay, this team mentally and on the racetrack is in a really good place. Bubba's in a really good place because he didn't have to fight through the last races of the regular season just to get into the postseason, which we normally see every year. So mentally, he was refreshed. He was ready to go. Charles Denick has done an incredible job with that race team in his first year as crew chief. That race team in general just keeps getting better and better. So I was really looking at, okay, I think this could be, in your words, as you use with Christopher Bell, I thought the 23 could be the dark horse or the underdog early in this playoffs. And then the wheels fell off in the second round. And like I said, when that happens and the points reset and you're that far behind, he needed that win at Kansas to get him here. And once they didn't get it, I knew it was going to be a long, tough day at the Roval, because that was not going to be a race where you expected to go out and have a 40, 50 point day. So not surprised by Trackhouse. I'm a little surprised, as I said, of the 23-11 piece that we don't have one of them right now.
Moving across to NASCAR's sixth sense of humor that has given the Cup Series, Talladega followed by Martinsville, same schedule for the Xfinity Series. Kelly, your take on this force of nature who is Connor Zilic? I mean, he's basically, he's looking pretty good, but he's got to go through that same sort of, kind of lottery of the. I mean, is basically Connor the nailed on Xfinity Series champ? Nobody's nailed on, but I mean, is he as near as?
Oh man. If I don't want people throwing eggs at me, I would, you got to say, yeah,
don't throw eggs at Kelly.
He's the most deserving. He should be the champion. This is what it should be. But it really depends on where you fall, on how you feel about this playoff format.
Well, there's a Justin Allgaier right behind him who's been there, seen it, done it. So let me ask you a question first. I'm curious before I get into my spiel about this playoff format. Where do you fall on this playoff, the NASCAR playoff format, and how we crown a champion? And because Connor Zilic is going to be a good example of what is right or wrong with this format. I'm absolutely fine with it. I basically think, I mean, okay, look at other playoffs. You look at baseball. They've got 7 games sort of, in a series to decide, who goes. By the way, Yankees got knocked out. Wow, brilliant. But then you look at the NFL and basically, you don't show up for a single playoff game and you're out of it. So I just think the way NASCAR has got it, it's a happy medium between being too long a form that you get the inevitable ones, although as we've discussed, the usual suspects are in the last 8 regardless, and it's not too bang that. Imagine basically if there was only Talladega to decide the top 4. I think it's good. I think it's got enough jeopardy, but I also think that the fact that you do have, multiple chances to basically salvage it, a la Joey Logano, it's found a happy medium. I think, by the way, this is going to play into the hands, I think, of... I cannot believe how quickly Connor Zilic, road racing phenom, he's the Van Gisbergen of the Xfinity Series at the moment. But I can't believe how he's managed to sort of, round out the rest of his palette, how the learning curve has gone so incredibly well on the ovals. And I don't feel he's going to go into Talladega thinking, what happens next?
Right. Yeah, because I feel like they could win this weekend and not have to worry about Talladega, or they could go win Martinsville and not have to worry about it. He's a good example of kind of what lens you want to look at this playoff format for, because you can make an argument right now, crown him the champion. That team's the most deserving. They've done what they needed to do this season. But if you fall on the other side of it, where, as you were talking about with any other sport, you still got to get there and you still have to earn it. And that's the world right now that we live in NASCAR. He and that team still have a job to do for the next 3 weeks. And if they do that job and get to Phoenix, then you got to go out and do it one more time to cap it off. I think, though, as you said, what's the most impressive to me is his entire body of work this season. Because having 10 wins, you could just look at the win column and be like, holy crap, that's so impressive. Give him the championship. But it's the entire body of work where that team, ever since the spring, which ironically, ever since he got hurt at Talladega, and when he came back, I don't think they finished out in the top 5 yet, or the top 10.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
So the wins are one thing. But as I said earlier, I really like to dig into a driver's body of work and what the team has done all year. That team has performed all year long on every style of racetrack, from week to week, no matter, yes, he has won road courses and we expected him to do that. He has proven me wrong, Lawrence, because I did not expect him to win any of the other races that he has won.
Right.
I didn't expect him to be as dominant on the ovals, not just winning races, but the laps that he has led, the stage points that he has earned. I thought that this would be a learning year for him. Yeah. I expected him to be fast because he's got talent and he's in a fast race car. I can admit I was wrong. I did not see this year coming. So I'm really impressed with the overall body of work. And as we look at the points, to bring it back to the playoffs, he and Allgaier in the points this year have been neck and neck.
Yeah.
So that's what's been entertaining to me, is when you look at this championship, if you want to award Zilic the championship because he's got the most wins, all right, I don't agree with you, but I understand it. But I still think between he and Allgaier, the fact that they've been neck and neck, and the stages and the stage points and everything else that they have done, the consistency for them to be, top 2 in points all year, to me that shows that here we are in the round of 8. Those 2 drivers, if you want to say deserve to race for a championship, I think those are the first 2 that you look at in that series.
And I think as well, I'm really looking forward to seeing a full Cup season for Zilic next year as well. And it's going to be an interesting dynamic as well with Trackhouse, with Zilic, with Van Gisbergen. basically having the two freaky fast road racers in the same team. I mean, that's going to be an incredible dynamic.
It's going to be so entertaining. It's going to be so entertaining because you and I right now are expecting that in 2026 that the road course races are going to be spoken for between SVG and Zilich, right? And who knows, it may not come down to that. But I still think it could be very entertaining because here's the one variable that I like to keep in the back of my mind when it comes to Zilich. For as fast as he is, and we've seen this in some of the Xfinity races this year on road courses, for as fast and as good as he is, there are times where he puts himself in really bad positions.
Right, yeah.
So on one hand, while we expect SVG and Zilich to go out and just dominate these road course races, and they're going to trade body shots, and it's going to, it's going to come down between the two of them. I also think that the other part of the story is you only get to that point if Zilich doesn't take himself out first.
Right. Yeah.
And I think
I see where you're coming from.
I think in the Cup Series, while we do expect him to contend at these road courses, it is not going to be as easy as he has made it look in the Xfinity Series to try and do that. So he's got to get to the front to where SVG is first before he can battle him for these wins. And I think it's going to be just as entertaining to see Zilich manage these Cup Series road course races as it will be if he can get there and compete for the win on them.
We've got you. So two things I want to just run past you before I put you on the spot back on the playoff side of things. But just give me your take on NASCAR's announcement that basically all the road and street courses and any track below 1.5 miles, they get a significant power boost next year. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't know if I would agree that it's significant, but I think it's a start.
It's 100 and something.
Well,
no, it's 80. It's 80 horsepower.
Yeah, I mean, and to the garage,
it's not significant.
To the garage, I don't know if they're going to say it's significant. They're going to probably tell you it's not enough. I will say this: I think for NASCAR, it's the right decision in the sense of this has been the conversation now for the last couple of years that now granted, drivers always want more horsepower, but there is legitimacy to calling for more horsepower with these race cars, right? So drivers have called for it. The garage wants to try it. The manufacturers say, let's try it. It's, going within a certain range is not going to affect or, break the bank, whatever the argument may be. So I think for NASCAR, Lawrence, it was the right decision because people have been knocking on the door for years. Try it. We want horsepower. So at some point, if you're NASCAR, we got to try it. There's no harm in trying it. Now, I will say, I think we should be cautiously optimistic because I don't think it is enough of a horsepower boost to make a difference. And I'm going to be really, really interested next year because, the drivers are going to tell us how they feel. We know that. I'm going to be really interested to hear their feedback of whether they think it's enough. I will say I think it's going to be a combination of the horsepower and the tires.
Right, yeah.
A boost in horsepower is a step in the right direction. I still think we need more. But taking the boost that NASCAR is giving them, and if Goodyear can keep working on these softer tires, and as we know in racing, we mentioned it earlier, it's got to be all the variables. If all of those variables come together, I am cautiously optimistic that we can see an improvement in what is, subjectively what makes a good race, right? Is there going to be passing? Can these drivers go out and control their race cars and do what they need to do and not feel like they're just stuck in the pack? So cautiously optimistic is my term for it. I like that NASCAR did this. I think that they deserve, the credit for doing it. It might, maybe it's a couple years too late, who knows, but they're doing it. And I appreciate the fact that we're in an era where this sanctioning body is truly willing to try things, whether it's the schedule, whether it's the race car, whatever it may be. Because for the longest time, as a lot of people who've been here for quite a while know, we were not in that position. This sport was stuck to its guns, and it was, they were not open to conversation or feedback or trying something different. So it's a good move. I would caution folks to, it's not going to be the be all end all solution. It may not even make any difference, but let's see if we can put all the variables together, and if we can start seeing a little bit of difference next year.
Second thing then, Kelly. So the NASCAR Cup Series season ends on November the 2nd, but then we've got the rest of the ongoing saga of NASCAR versus 2311 and front row. This has been going on all season now. We seem to be no closer to resolution. Put on your elevator pitch head and just remind us, what is this about? Where is it going?
Yeah.
And when can maybe we expect it to have some sort of resolution?
It's hard to believe that we are now a year into this. It was October 2nd of 2024 that all of this started. I don't know if we are closer to a resolution, as you said. I think for the very optimistic folks, when when the news comes out yesterday that NASCAR was granted the settlement conference that they requested, I think that's a good sign for NASCAR, because I think it shows that they want this to go away. Now, whether they want it to go away because they just want it to go away and focus on racing, or because they don't want to open their books, either way, they want it to go away. The question is going to be, when they get in that room, how dug in is 2311 and front row to what NASCAR is going to offer them? How close are they when they start those discussions on what each side is willing to give and not give? As I said, how dug in is 2311 of, we want to take our chances at a trial and we want all of this to come out in the open. I think once we get through that later this month, that's set for the 21st. Once we get the reaction from that, I think that will set the clearest picture yet of, are there going to be more discussions? Are they really close? Are they actually working towards common ground here? But if they come out of that the same way they did when they came out of the court-mandated mediation in August, where nothing was resolved,
Kelly,
then this is going to go the distance.
Kelly.
That's my feeling, is that, and I could be wrong, but I would believe that after the 21st, based on their reactions, is that we should have a pretty good idea of kind of where things stand. It's going to come down to, as I said, when they get in that room, of who's willing to give what. So.
Oh boy. Well, I did ask you for an update, so I got one. Right, to close then, Kelly. You are currently in Vegas. You can wander down to your lobby and basically go to a sporting book right now. If you was to put money on anybody for Vegas, just give me your take on one. This is pressure. Mm. You're going to tell me somebody who isn't in the top 8.
The low-hanging fruit is Joey Logano, right? Just because he's the pick of conversation. He has won this fall race 2 of the last 3 years. So, as we were talking about earlier, would not surprise me at all if Joey Logano does Joey Logano things this weekend. But looking at the intermediates and looking at this race in particular here in Vegas, I never like to say that a race owes a driver anything.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you can make a strong argument, Lawrence, that if there's ever a race and a driver that is owed something, it is Christopher Bell at Las Vegas.
Right, here we go.
Particularly the last couple years in this fall race, of how good they have been, and they've gotten snookered by somebody else at the finish. So they are always so fast when they come here. I mentioned it earlier, Kansas a couple weeks ago, a similar 1.5-mile racetrack. They looked really good at that race. They were in the conversation there at the end on those overtime attempts. So I'm always a what have you done for me lately person when it comes to these races, and you always see the 20 in the conversation in this fall Vegas race. So I'm gonna start with him, even though, like I said, the low hanging fruit is the 22.
Hey, well, I'm going to put in mine. I'm really glad you've gone the Christopher Bell way, because I say it doesn't make me sound such an outlier when I said about him being my dark horse, my sleeper. I also think this might be the weekend where Kyle Larson puts in,
Yep.
a big old marker. You've been basically saying you're never quite sure which one is going to basically sort of show, but I feel. Yeah, this could be a Larson weekend.
So something that I want to mention here as we're talking about this race, and if you're talking about winners, is I didn't realize this until I was sitting down to make some notes for our conversation today. Las Vegas has been on the schedule for a number of years, but I forgot for a while somehow that they haven't always had two races. And I didn't realize.
That's right. Yeah.
I didn't realize that it has not been that long since this fall race has been on the schedule. It's only been here since 2018. So I went back and I was looking at the fall winners in particular, right? Because as you know, so much evolves in racing from the start of the year to the end of the year. So I don't want to put too much weight on what happened here in the spring, because, everybody's evolved their stuff and the stakes are higher this weekend. But if you look at the winners of this race, only 3 of them are in the round of 8 this weekend. And that's Logano, Larson, and Denny Hamlin. They have won the last 4 fall races here. Hamlin won it in 2021, Logano won it in 22 and 24, and Larson won it in 23. The previous winners were Kurt Busch, Martin Truex, and Brad Keselowski.
God, you just reinforced my Larson theory. That is brilliant.
So it's and he's got some spring wins. Larson has some spring wins here at Vegas too. This has always been a really good track for them. But I thought it was interesting to just remind myself of how many fall races we have had here at Vegas and who the winners were. So Bell, as I was talking about, is not on that list, but he's always in the conversation. I think Larson, who is on the list, will be in the conversation this weekend. William Byron has been in the picture here as well. So again, that's why these round of 8 drivers are the round of 8 drivers. They always are there when it matters.
Hey, well, Kelly, that has been some brilliant insight as we get ready for the round of 8. I'm certainly stoked. I'm definitely looking forward to Talladega, and I don't know whether that's in a slightly warped way, but what would be great? Thank you for setting us up for the round of 8. Let's regroup before the championship 4. Let's see where we stood based on.
Let's see if any of what we just talked about actually happens.
Well, since we mentioned 8 drivers, 4 of them will be in the championship 4, so we're not going to be too wrong. But Kelly, that was fascinating insight. Thanks for joining us, and I guess you're going to head to the track now. So busy weekend ahead for you.
Yeah. I enjoy coming out here. I think this race is going to be a lot of fun. It's really, really, really going to set the tone for this round. So I, like you, am looking forward to Talladega as well. I think a lot of people are, right? Because, whether it's for good reasons or bad reasons, or whether you just want to see the chaos, it's going to be interesting. But yeah, we've got a heck of a round and I think a heck of a weekend this weekend on tap. So it's going to be fun. And I can't wait. We'll definitely have to talk more about Championship 4, because that's when it's really real.
Hey, we'll see you in a couple of weeks then, Kelly. And enjoy the weekend. And let's see where our predictions go.